Well, in tough trading conditions, the results you've put on the table solid enough. I mean, revenue up 6%, HEPS down 7%, operating expenses up 13%. But if you exclude that BE transaction that was done in the first half of the year, both earnings and operating expenses looking a bit better. What's your assessment of the year that was for the company?
I think you've given a good summary of it. I believe that we've seen a strong first half, and then on the second half, as we've heard from the Derek previously on retail sales, hardware sales, and that was under pressure. The second half up 4% in revenue for us, but we managed to maintain our gross margins. And then good cost control. Our operating cost grew by 5% in the second half. Overall, if you exclude that BE transaction, 8% for the year. And I think that all translated to a bottom line that and we posted some solid results.
You mentioned cost controls there. Is that one of the primary drivers behind you being able to see margins increase 22.5%, because you've managed to achieve that within a very sluggish environment and a very competitive environment as well?
Yes, cost control is always a part of the Cashbuild culture, is that we do things very smartly, and we always try and improve on things as we do, and cost control forms an important part of that. But overall, it's a real team effort. Every single store contributed, people working together, and the people, the culture and the ethics in Cashbuild and serving customers is second to none, and that all contributed to a strong performance. Our volumes was there, and that all contributed.
Well, what about the costs you do incur? I mean, how easy is that to pass on to your consumer market? One would assume that margins to an extent are being squeezed at this stage.
We've got a policy that we pass on all increases in selling or in cost prices. We pass on to our consumers and to our customers. But at the end of the day, there's also market factors, as you mentioned, that would preclude you from doing it. But we've worked smartly through the year, worked together with our suppliers and making sure that we work smarter and being able to maintain that margin. We've seen that our cement mix during this year, especially in the second half, was down by about 2-3%, where it's normally 25% of our business. It dropped to 22%. And that also had some positive effect on our gross margins.
We know that Cashbuild has been raking in better business from the rural side of things as opposed to urban areas. Is that a trend that continues, and why are we seeing this kind of discrepancy?
I believe it's purely to do with the number of competition that one sees in the urban areas and the metropolitan areas. So to answer you, that trend is still the same. We see very strong trading from our rural and smaller town areas, and the urban areas, albeit slightly better, is still an area that's under pressure for us.
Let's put that competitive landscape that you touched on there under the spotlight, because we've seen Builders Warehouse, and that's the operation that's been established by Massmart, specifically giving you some competition. Is it more competition now than before, given the fact that we've got Walmart taking handle of the reins?
In terms of the competition, yes. I mean, there has certainly been some aggressive pricing that came out in the market. But again, one needs to focus. I won't say there's more competitors in the market. It's the same players, also focusing on their strategies and getting stronger. And one just needs to maintain your focus on your own strategy, not try and follow other people's strategy or to combat that necessarily, but to see what your own core strategy is and just to focus on it day in and day out.
To what extent do you feel that your market share is under threat? Because bearing in mind that you have had this first mover's advantage into the rural areas specifically.
The fact that you're first into market always gives you the edge, but that doesn't mean we can sit back and relax. No, we will keep on focusing on our core strategies and making sure that we stay ahead of that game and make sure that we keep our loyal customers and keep on servicing them.
Of course, you've been very focused on expansion, and that kind of rollout moving forward. And what's interesting is that the 13 new stores the group opened since July 2009 accounted for 3% of the revenue, as did the 178 pre-existing stores. Now, run us through that, because I had to double read that line to actually make sure it made sense.
Yeah, but basically it's a bit of an accountancy probably. Overall, the turnover grew by, or revenue grew by 6%. And if we just compare like-for-like stores, they would have been up by 3%. And that's where the additional 3% for new stores was really on top of the 3% growth in the existing store base.
So more accounting, accounting for that, as opposed to saying that those 13 stores did the same as your 178
not at all.
stores.
No, they accounted for an additional 3% of the 6% increase. So.
Run us through your strategy in terms of expansion from here on out. Are you targeting rural centres more so than anything else, or are you looking at expansion holistically?
We're looking at it holistically, but in the short term, for the next year or so, the stores that we will be opening is more focused on rural towns and on smaller towns and rural areas. So we'll probably see in a region of 5 to 10 stores opening in the next financial year. So we're pretty much on track in terms of that growth that we've seen from us over the last few years.
What about your Africa strategy? Because we've seen that you've made an offer to acquire non-controlling shareholders' interest in Cashbuild Swaziland, and that for 62 million rand. But this, while we know that Botswana still poses somewhat of a challenge for the Cashbuild operation.
Yeah, Botswana was still, again, disappointing this year, and it all relates to the top line that we haven't managed to correct there yet. So structurally, there's nothing wrong with the business there. I believe the economy is under immense pressure in Botswana, and we'll keep on focusing on the rest of our Africa. At this stage, it's not on our strategy to expand further to other areas where we're currently trading. So we'll remain in the countries where we are trading in.
So some of the cash going that way, to organically build the company. At the half-year period, many were asking, given that you had quite a lot of cash on the balance sheet, what's the idea behind having so much in the bank? What's the plan with dealing with that kind of excess cash? We've seen a nice increase in your dividend as well, up 27%, but also mentioned at the half-year period was that the cash would be used to purchase properties. Run us through that strategy and how much focus you're placing on that right now.
It's quite a core focus for us, because properties for us, any retailer, is an important part of our business. Now we go into long-term leases, 10-year leases, and when you go into 10-year leases, you really pay for the building that you're in. So it makes financial sense for us to purchase properties. We haven't been that successful because our model is to be in shopping centres, and it's difficult to acquire a portion of a shopping centre where your store is
specifically. So where one would assume that with the depressed property market, those opportunities are abundant, not necessarily the case.
Not necessarily for us, no.
Well, certainly we've seen a good advantage in a number of companies who've adopted those strategies, ShopRite being one of them. So we'll be watching the kind of progress you make there. In terms of your outlook moving forward for the company, Werner, because this is still within a very sluggish environment, a consumer that's still very much under pressure, as we heard Derek highlight earlier on in the show.
Yes. Well, I can only talk about what we've seen trading-wise for the first 9 weeks after our year-end, and it's been very positive. We've been trading up 8%, where we finished the year on 6%, so we've seen some positive trading. So the outlook is positive for us. We just need to focus again, like I said, on our core strategies, and make sure that we keep on focusing and don't lose that edge that makes us better.